Get ready to see your data structures in a whole new light with Andy McGovern leading Erwin Skills 101, the art of documenting data structures. This isn't just about diagrams, it's about turning complex models into clear, shareable stories that everyone can understand. Whether you're tackling tricky schemas or aiming for better team alignment, Andy's going to share practical tips to document with purpose and impact. Prepare to elevate your documentation game and make your data models work harder for you. To a man who needs no further introduction, I'll gladly hand it over to you, Andy.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jessica. I'm really looking forward to today's session. As you guys know, this is session 3, and we're going to be diving into the art of documenting your data models. So, as I just mentioned, this is episode 3 of our Skills 101 series. We're going to be diving much more deeply into working with the models that we created in our last session. As a quick introduction, once again, my name is Andy McGovern, and I'm going to be your guide for our Skills 101 session. I've been with Erwin now for 9 years, and I'm really looking forward to helping you get a better understanding of how to leverage Erwin Data Modeler as a data modeling practice. It's not the most intuitive solution in the world, but what I'm going to be showing you today is going to help you have a better ability to navigate the solution itself and drive towards specific business goals. Just reverse engineering and all these other things are really cool from a technical standpoint, but the business is what's sponsoring this product and the solution in your organization. So you got to give some business value back. And then one of the ways that we can do that is by documenting these models and building out data dictionaries that they can be shared so that the data that we have in our environments is understandable by everyone. So today we're going to talk about working with Erwin Data Modeler. That we're going to start with the same model that we finished with last time, a logical physical model. We created a model by reverse engineering, and then we added a logical component to it. We're going to show you how you can integrate your terminology, existing terminology and new terminology into the models themselves, how to use custom data flags, also known as user-defined properties within the model, so that you can start flagging additional information beyond just the metadata and putting this data in context, which is the whole point of working with the data modeler in today's data landscape. We're going to talk about working with subject areas and how we can take these pieces of a larger model and break them down into more specific and focused chunks. So with that said, let's start rolling right into it. We're going to be talking at a higher level from a Quest perspective, how data security fits into this, how we are going to flag that sensitive data, how we're going to utilize those subject areas, how we can generate the reports, and then ultimately how we can share this information out via our web portal, which is ER360. But all of this is going to be focused on what we're talking about today is specific in the realm of working with the Erwin Data Modeler Standard Edition. There are other components that could be integrated from the Worker Edition, but this is all basic functionality of the Standard Edition. I am starting off all these sessions with this big old slide, and I will say it once again, this is a big old slide with lots of information. As a pre-sales person, this can be a little bit intimidating because I do have to be able to answer for all of this, but I can assure you that the pre-sales team at Quest and the Quest Solution team can support everything that's on this slide. One more slide here talking about our broad DBMS support. If you're just jumping in and you haven't seen the first 2 episodes, Erwin Data Modeler supports 33 data structures natively. That means we can reverse engineer, forward engineer, and do a complete compare between those structures. In addition to that, we have 150 import bridges that we can use to bring in from other sources, including other models. So let's go back to where we left off. When we last left our heroes, we had created an Erwin data model, a logical physical data model. We gave these models, they have 2 diagrams in there, a logical and a physical. And the last thing we did was we named these models. Now, as we go through this session, please keep in mind what I'm going to be talking about and what I'm going to be demonstrating is specific to the functionality. The information, the context, what's on those little boxes is irrelevant. And we're going to zoom in as necessary. So they are going to be a little bit blurry, but I'm going to be talking about which buttons to push within the interface in order to make all of this happen. So that's where we were. And now we're going to take that and we're going to start moving forward and we're going to annotate these diagrams. So when we're building this data dictionary and we're going to be setting this model to go out into the world, we're going to use annotation to let the model speak for itself. So we're going to annotate the logical and physical side. And as a bonus, when this session is done, we're going to provide these annotations so you can grab them yourself and incorporate them into your model so that you can take advantage of this. They are genericized, where I have publication system. My system is going to say your system in bold. So you just replace that. Okay, so annotate the diagrams. So we're going to click on the properties. We're going to go to the definition, and then in the definition, we're going to paste in this description here, or this definition. So what this is going to do is when you generate the data dictionary, and when you publish this out to ER360, or even if somebody's just looking at the model in the data modeler, this annotation is going to pop up. And this is the annotation for the logical diagram, and I'll read it. This is a diagram presenting all the data elements as established by business personnel during the data requirements phase for your system. These entities, attributes, and their definitions describe what the business identifies as the data requirements needed for this system. As changes are needed, any additional data requirements or other business changes are applied to the application. This diagram will be updated to reflect these changes. This is our logical diagram. This is our business diagram. And we'll annotate this so when people look at it, this description is associated with it, because that's ultimately the main reason for this logical diagram. It's a bit wordy, but why not? All right, and then we have the physical diagram. This is less wordy because it's on the technical side, and the physical diagram description is, this diagram represents the physical implementation for the database supporting your system. All details for the physical database schema are available in this view to enable technical personnel in planning and scheduling database changes to this system. And then the target for this is technical personnel. Keep in mind, when we're working with these Erwin data models, as we make changes on the logical side, by default, it's going to build those components on the physical side. We add an entity on the logical side, it automatically starts creating the table structure on the physical side there. So now we've annotated our diagrams. Our diagrams are ready to go out into the world as part of the model. When they go to ER360, they're going to be annotated. All right, so logical physical model, that's from the last session. We broke it out into the two different diagrams in the last session. We just added descriptions to those diagrams. Now we're going to get into the technical stuff here with naming standards. When we discover our physical structure, we're going to discover the physical names. And physical names, and this all goes back to the 8-bit days, right? Data is, memory was at an absolute premium. So everything was short and sweet. I call it sequelish. Now, when we discover these tables and everything in this database, we discovered a table called cus. We discovered a table called order. Everything is abbreviated. Now, on the logical side, that's for the business users. So we can't expect them to be able to do in their head translation of abbreviations. So the name standard mapping is what provides for that translation. It's been a component of Erwin Data Modeler for pretty much since its inception. It's a separate, it used to be a separate file called the .nsm file, and what it was used for was to translate from your business term into your physical term. So you would have an entity called customer, and it would build the cust structure for that table. That functionality is still in the data modeler, and actually that is our best practice for building models. It's a hard code your logical term, your business term, and then let the NSM translate that. However, in this exercise, we're going to flip that on its side. what we're doing is we're going to take that NSM file and we're going to use it to translate backwards. So our entity, or I'm sorry, our table called cust is going to render and show up in our logical diagram as customer. So that's where we're going to go with the NSM file here. The NSM file is going to be made available to you after the fact. It's a generic-ish NSM file specific to a publication system, but it will be a really good template that you can use to move forward with to build your own NSM files. When we get into the workgroup edition, we can actually manage these at a higher level, but we're just going to focus on getting this model documented in SQLish and the vernacular. So as we go through here, on the left-hand side in your Explorer panel, you're going to click on Naming Standards. You're going to create a new naming standard, and we're going to give it a name. And we're going to call it DM Skills 101. After the session is done, I will be providing this NSM file to you. What you're going to do is you're going to click on this import icon and bring that NSM file into the mix. And this is what it looks like. And like I said, this is for my publication system, so it is a bit eccentric to that, but you get the idea. What we're looking at here is on the left column, we have the word, the business term, and then the abbreviation. And then these are the triggers, the primary triggers and modifiers. So now this NSM file is associated with the model. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to set it as active and go from physical to logical. Then you hit close. You'll notice that everything has gotten bigger because it's not abbreviated anymore. Right? So that's the translation has occurred. Now we're going to do a little bit of a review in how to navigate through the data modeler. So we got a bit of a mishmash in our diagram. If we want to split that out and lay it out nicely again, what we're going to do is hit the hierarchical button up at the top for your diagram. That's going to pop everything out. It may not lay out at the same plane. So what you can do is you use the zoom button to go out and grab your objects. In this case, these entities. And then you're going to drag them over into the position that you like. This is the fiddling and twiddling of data modeling that just gets all kind of fun. And then you hit the zoom button to go out. And then you're going to have this particular view. And now what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in to take a look at how those translations were applied. So we just did there is we zoomed out, we zoomed in, we relayed everything out. Those are all the basic muscle memory mechanics of working with the data modeler. We'll see that a few more times as we go through, but as these sessions continue, I'm going to start dropping those out so that I can focus on different content. But that's zoom in, zoom out, hierarchical will let you set your layouts. And what we're seeing here is the logical model with all of the business terms. So we're not looking at a table called cust, we're looking at an entity called customer and all of the associated columns that are in there. All right, so we have our models. We annotated our models, so now we added our name standard mappings. So our logical side is getting fleshed out with business terms. Now we're going to try to take advantage of the column comments that you may already have in your database. And this is pretty simple. In your physical diagram, we're going to zoom in here a little bit. And what you want to do is in the column properties, in the column properties tab, you go to comments. On the right-hand side is a radio button, update attribute definition to match. This is how you can reuse the column comments that may actually be in your database. If you don't have them there, well, that's a different topic. We can actually use the data modeler to push comments out to those disks. But this is where we can reuse them. If we hit this radio button, update attribute definition to match, literally, when we go into the attribute and we look at the definition, it's going to match exactly here. I'm not going to show you that right now. You're going to have to take my word for it. We'll actually see that when we go into the bulk editor. But this is a really simple way to reuse that. And if when we get into the bulk editor, I'll show you how we can do that for all of the columns in our physical model and then reuse them over in the entity in the ER diagram. All right. Next up, flagging sensitive data. This is actually probably the easiest. For all of your columns and attributes, you can go in the properties, and at the high level, just as you're looking at all the different columns, there's an SDI button. Click that button, and then that will flag everything as sensitive data. That is going to be reflected when you look at this model in ER360, is going to be reflected when this model moves up into data intelligence. You can also see this information in the model or however else you need it. But this is where you're going to flag your sensitive data. You can also flag it by leveraging the bulk editor. I'm going to show you that in a moment. That's where you can just go through and click en masse. But at its simplest, this is how you flag your sensitive data. It becomes part of the model. It becomes part of the data dictionary. It's fully reportable. And all you have to do is click the button. All right. Next up, user-defined properties, UDPs, custom labels. How do we add information to put this data in context that is relevant to our organization? And the way we do that is through user-defined properties. Now, what I'm going to show you is really, again, is really simple and basic. I'm going to show you how to add a user-defined property to a column. Keep in mind that you can do this to any object type in these models. So the first thing we do is we click on the Model tab, and then we go over to the user-defined properties. Make sure that you're on the physical model here. Otherwise, you're going to be creating user-defined properties for attributes, not columns. So as we do this in the drop-down, we're going to be able to see all of the different object types. We're going to select column. We're going to add a new component here. So we click on the new icon up at the top. It gives us a default name. We're going to change that name to critical data element. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a user-defined property that is going to specify whether this object is a critical data element. The user-defined property is going to use the list property, which is basically you can put a number of options in there. In this case, we're going to do yes or no with the default of no. That's why we put the tilde in front of that. And by doing this, this user-defined property is going to be available in the model against all of the columns. All right, so what we're doing is we've added the user-defined property. We gave it a name. The type is list. The default is tilde no comma yes. It's not a database property. That's going to show up specifically in this model that I'm using because the target database is Microsoft SQL. We can actually use user-defined properties to enhance that document structure too. All right, then we hit close, and now the user-defined property has become part of the model, and we can see that if we go in to the model itself and we click on the UDP tab, we'll see the critical data element is there, and the default is no, and we all breathe a sigh of relief. If you need to change these, you can just use the drop down, or you can edit in the bulk editor. So you can see who the star of this show is going to be. And here it is, the bulk editor. Now, the bulk editor is an overlooked component of the data modeler that if I talk to folks who have been using data modeler for a long time, they either don't use it or they use it specifically for a task, and that's usually to update domains. The bulk editor is a heavy lifter. You can't add any objects using the bulk editor, but you can edit any of the attributes associated with that. All right, so in order to get here, we're going to go into the View tab, panes, and then the bulk editor pane. That's going to pop it up here. There's a wizard that you're going to walk through. You're a wizard, Harry, and then you put this in, and it's going to explain what's going on and how this works, and you can make this never see it again. Then we're going to select the columns, right? Because we're going to add user define, or we're going to use the bulk editor to edit the Definitions, user-defined properties, sensitive data, right? So we select the columns as the object type, and then we're going to select the different attributes there, right? So the critical data element, user-defined property, the comments, uh, update attribute definition to match, PII. It is SDI in there. Full disclaimer, I'm actually using an older version here, but it still works the same. So PII sensitive data, in this case, are analogs. And then we select all of the columns in the model. And in order to make this easier to view, we're going to include the owner path so that when it shows up, it's in context with the tables themselves. Hit edit, and now you're in the bulk editor. You can make your changes in here, which is awesome. But ideally, what you want to be able to do is export this to a spreadsheet. I'm going to follow this up at the end. We're going to be providing an appendix, and Jessica is going to be providing a link to the documentation specific to the bulk editors so that you can take a deeper dive into it. What we're seeing here within the interface itself is that update attribute definition to match. And I remember I showed you that before. So what you're seeing here is the column comment is being reused as the attribute definition in the ER diagram. Here's the critical data element information and then the PII. So all of this can be set, like I said, in the interface, or ideally is you're going to take this and you save it off to a spreadsheet and you make your changes there. So I will be providing documentation for that. The bulk editor is super, super powerful. All right, on to a subject area. Now, the model that I'm using is relatively small. There's 28 models or 28 objects that are set there, or 28 tables. A subject area is a way to break this down into smaller pieces of related objects. So to build a subject area in the Explorer pane, you're going to go to subject area, and then you're going to click new, and it'll come up with a random name. We're going to add, we're going to call this Skills 101, and right click on the properties. And what you'll see here is the objects, all of the tables that are in the model itself. In here is a little utility called the spanning neighborhood, and that spanning neighborhood is right here. It's the 3 into 1 arrows. When you invoke this, again, you're going to be able to see all of the objects that are specific in the model itself. And what you can do here is you can select the ancestry. So we want to get everything that's directly related to the order item table. So we start with the order item table, and we go one ancestor level and one descendant level. It's going to analyze the model, and as you'll see here, it's selected everything that's related with those check marks, and then you hit add. That's going to pop that into the subject area itself. You hit close, and there's your subject area. There's nothing there. This is where people, they're like, what happened? There's another step that you need to make. You need to add the objects to the diagram in here. So you click properties, you select your subject area, and then you move them over, automatically populate from the subject area. And then those objects are going to drop into the diagram. It's a blobby mess. And how do we fix that? Hierarchical, pop it out, zoom out. So now this is the subject area. This is separate from the main model. This diagram is separate from the main model. I can generate DDL from this separately. And when I publish this out to ER360, the subject area is also going to tag along. In my model, I have one order item. Sometimes it looks like this in the subject area. Sometimes it looks like an entity, but there is one object. Keep that in mind when you're working the subject area, so they will reflect across the model. One last thing, when you're navigating through here, it can be very frustrating. You can find yourself getting lost if you are if you can't find your way back. So check on the left-hand side of your screen If you have it set up that way, you have Model Explorer and Subject Area. In order to get all the way back to the main model, you want to drop that subject area up to model or drop back to the Model Explorer. Otherwise, you're going to be like, where's my stuff? All right. Now we're bringing it home. Now we're going to create the data dictionary. We have logical and physical components. We have sensitive data flagged. We have user-defined properties. We're ready to get this out to the masses. So we're going to take a look at how to do that directly in the Data Modeler Standard Edition by using the Report Designer. In the Report Designer, you're going to get there, you're going to go to Tools and then Report Designer. You're going to click in and you're going to open Pinned Reports. From there, you're going to go to Model Reports, Logical Physical Combined Dictionary. We did this in the last session, but now we're going to add the user-defined property and that personally identifiable information flag, the SDI flag. So as we go into the model and into the Report Designer, we bring the model, the pinned report up, and then we right-click on the properties. And from there, we can drill in and select the user-defined property that we added. And we can go down. So that's actually in the properties of the column. And then we go deeper into that and we grab that PII, run the report. We'll see the report in the Report Designer here on our screen. And we can also export this to CSV, HTML, or PDF. All right, so this is where that data dictionary is going to come out. A pretty common way is to generate the data dictionary and pop it as HTML, and then pop it out to SharePoint. All right. All right, we're bringing it home. So everything that we've spoken about so far has been relevant to Erwin Data Modeler Standard Edition. I'm going to show you how these models can be published in ER360, which is a component of the Workgroup Edition. The benefits of working with ER360 is you don't have to generate the reports. There's an engine on the back end that is automatically going to run to pick up the latest version of a model, push it out to ER360, and ER360 is a managed self-service portal, meaning the end users can come in, they can look at these diagrams, and you can even download the information without having to go through the data modeling team. And this is what the model looks like in ER360. Relatively the same, right? But it's in a web portal. What we see here are the diagram itself, the physical diagram itself has got the same colorization. There's a flyover window so that you can look at the larger model, so you can fly over or you can zoom. End users can download the data dictionary themselves as a CSV or Excel, depending on what permissions you give them. There's also a search bar in here so that I can find a specific object within the model. I can expose sensitive data. I can show data types, domains, etc. Very, very powerful for any organization that really understands the value of a data model and that value goes beyond just the technical teams. So, and that's why most of you folks are on here too. You're aware of that requirement and that need in organizations today. And then finally, what we have here is the subject area, as we were showing that before, a simple refined view of objects from the model itself. And the end users are going to be able to see this on a regular basis. And this is going to be dynamic. If there's any changes that are made in the model, it'll be reflected here. So the end users are always assured that they're looking at the quality data available to them from their data modelers. So thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to our next session where we're going to get into more of the management aspect of working with the Erwin Data Modeler. We are going to be providing you links to the definitions and documentation for the subjects that we covered today. I'd like to thank Jessica again for being a great hostess, and I look forward to having you on our next session, and have a great day.